Just think we're here to listen to these teachings, discuss, think, analyze, contemplate, and then put into practice. So that we can, so we can be ready for death. It's in the Buddhist tradition. We'll talk about it more. We there, Shana? Refuge prayer? Where's it going? Just think, we're going to sing this little prayer. Just the first few lines are just reminding us of our reliance on the Buddha, for those of us who figure we're already Buddhists. Just reiterating our reliance on the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. The second two lines stating our motivation. Motivation, our goal, thinking we're going to listen so we can take some advice to help us on this goal of developing our lives, so we can benefit others. Started screen sharing, good. Where is it? Never mind, don't worry, I'll just sing it. Just think those thoughts. Sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho badu jagmi kyab suchi dagi chonyen gi pe sonam ki drola penche sangye drupasho sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho badu jagmi kyab suchi dagi chonyen gi pe sonam ki drola penche sangye drupasho sangye charang Soke Tognam La, Changcho Vadu Jagni Kyap Suchi, Dagi Chonyen Gipe Sonam Ki, Drola Penche Sange, Drumpa Sho. I think I want to really talk about it, just this really learning to change our mind, the way we see ourselves in the world, from the perspective of impermanence, I mean, that's the broader teaching in Buddhism. One of his very first philosophical teachings, is that everything is changing moment by moment, and there are even these subtle teachings in Buddhism about what they call subtle impermanence. And why he's teaching this is because we have this intense grasping, this idea deep in our bones, even though we know things change, we know flowers die, we know relationships end, we know things change, but we always find it so shocking and so distressing. I think we should look at that and analyze why. What the logic is. We just take it for granted, don't we? So, so it has to be, if you're surprised by something, it's because you don't think it. If you're shocked when something happens, it means you must have not expected it or assumed it shouldn't happen. So what's at play here, I think, in the Buddhist perspective, from the psychological point of view? First of all, the key, of course, is always attachment. This very primordial kind of neediness, emotional hunger, things to be nice. This is a root. This emotional hunger that somehow always thinks things only should be nice. And of course, what we mean by nice is what I think is nice. It's very self-centered, I mean, if you get your nice thing, the coffee is delicious for you, and then I get a miserable coffee, I'm not happy. I've got to really work on that, don't I? So we want what we want. This is very primordial. So then, of course, on top of that, like Buddha is saying, we've got all these misconceptions in our mind, very deeply ingrained. So we have this emotional hunger for things being nice, attachment. And then when we get it, this is really clear. When we get it, it's like we're so excited, so happy, can't believe something's happened. You've got a good job, you've got a good relationship, well, things are going well. So it's so exciting. Nothing wrong. To be happy is wonderful. But we are very scared of losing it. And literally there's fear of losing it, fear that it will change. And the reality is it will. It doesn't mean it'll change today. It could take a long time. We know that. But because of attachment, if we didn't have attachment, if we didn't have emotional hunger, it would imply that we're already happy. It would imply that. So because we're not, we always think something's missing, so we find something, we think we found a treasure, so we grasp at it extra strong. And then because we think our happiness is relying upon the presence of that in our lives, then of course we're scared of losing it. We live in fear of it going or changing. Or what we tend to do, I always quote, this like in a relationship, when it's going well, if you analyze it, there's a feeling it's because it's good today. Well, of course, it's going to be good tomorrow. We take it for granted, in other words. Now, so taking something for granted means you don't realize as things are changing. And the kind of impermanence Buddha's talking about is this kind of dynamic. Not just, one day someone will leave you, not necessarily that, but everything is in the nature of change. It's the nature of everything that it's got a very dynamic. It's moving, shifting, changing. And that also means disintegrating. We know, flowers, people, computers, that kind of change is what we don't want. We don't like. So the good thing that's happening that you're attached to, you don't want it to change. And this is the point, because we rely upon it for our happiness. If we didn't have attachment, meaning we'd been an advanced person, we'd be already content. If we were already content and fulfilled, then it doesn't matter if things change. It's because we rely upon that thing. We assume the relationship, the cake, the job, the possessions, they are the cause of those happy feelings. So, of course, you don't want to let go of them. This is really obvious, And then, because not only do we, and we assume it won't change. So we put this lie on top of it. It's a lie. We plonk that right on top. When you're in love and you found a relationship, everything's perfect, we will be together all our life, we will say. And we mean it with absolute sincerity. What we mean is, just because it's good today, we feel it'll not even be good tomorrow, but it'll be there tomorrow. This is the main pain. So when it's not, when something happens, that's how we're devastated. We are devastated. But to analyze it, so this is why if we really think about and meditate on, it seems kind of boring in a way, think about how things change. Who cares, But it's profound, because it's a major mistake we make. We suffer so much because of it. So really looking, again, this is where we have to use logic. It's not some kind of emotional meditation. It's using clear-eyed logic. It is evident. It's evident that things are dynamic and changing, disintegrating. I mean, disintegrating quite literally. Maybe some things take longer. Things take 1,000,000 years to disintegrate. Other things take a day or a second, And that includes cups and possessions, our body for sure, and things and relationships and jobs. And also the Buddha would say, because we don't realize cause and effect, we have no understanding of karma, then we don't know what caused it. We don't know how long, or we don't know how much gas in the tank, in other words, So certainly when it comes to our own life. Okay, so with flowers, because we're experienced with gardens, we know that roses don't last long, and we know that flowers are quite fragile and they're all gone by the winter and they come back in the spring. That's pretty evident. But we know that people die. We do know that. People die, dogs die, ants die. But somehow we think it's a mistake if you die, especially a human, and you and your beloveds. It's a mistake. You shouldn't die. So we can't stand the thought of death, So it's a combination of intense attachment and grasping at things as being permanent. And it's just a habit. It's just a habit. If you dig deep, it's just a habit. So how would you be then if you didn't grasp at things as permanent? How would you be if, you were in touch with the reality of impermanence? Well, the Lamas say, forget about realizing emptiness or bodhicitta. You'd be transformed. You'd be fearless. You'd know everything is changing. And because you're not clairvoyant, you don't know how long things will last, including relationships. But when we think that, it seems so shocking, to think it could end. Because when you've got a romantic relationship, by definition, you want it to last until you die. That's what people think, isn't it? So then when the husband wants to do it, when he wants what do you call it? You have to write an agreement. Prenup, yeah. Must be very shocking, very depressing. You understand? So, because we just don't like change. I mean, okay, we don't like good things changing. We love change when a bad thing stops. But this is the tragedy, because we're clinging to things, nice things, and when we get the nice thing, we're scared to lose it. We're scared it'll go. So we're like living in fear, quite literally, living in fear. The husband leaving you. His one woman I know in a class, she just said, I live in fear every day that he will die. So that one year, especially that one, I was the example of the person with the relationship. We will be together until we're 80, she said. With certainty, we say that. And why we say it is because you feel so close to that person. It feels so natural to be together, like you're completely ones with each other. It's like you're ancient friends. So of course when we say, and we will be together until we are 80, we believe it's a scientific truth because it feels good. There's no logic at all. There's a fraction of logic. What you mean is we hope to be together until we're 80. Because that's better to say. We wish we could be. So the tragedy is, of course, when in fact they weren't, the husband left her, then of course that change was beyond devastating. And then now the change has happened, and now you don't believe that will change, and that's the bad one, and that's the problem one, because then you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You're completely full of despair and depression, and so you kill yourself. This is so common, and that's because we're grasping at this badness as not changing. So we live in fear of the good thing changing, and we live in despair when it's the bad thing. So you can't win, you know. So just trying to realize, and there's something evident, emptiness is too subtle, but if it is too high, just this is nothing tricky or intellectual or strange. It's just open your eyes and see facts, you know, look at reality and remind yourself. You know, you don't know that you believe things won't change. We don't know that because it's too instinctive. So take the view that we do instinctively think things won't change or don't want them to change. So just therefore counteract that by observing that things do change and get the wake-up call, you know. So of course here in particular the point is in relation to our own death. It's got very, very powerful meaning. So from the Buddhist perspective, the logic is because your consciousness will continue after when you die. So if you're a materialist, if you have the philosophy of materialism, I mean, we still don't want to die, but nothing, you know, the only thing you leave is your body and it goes into dust. So there's no sort of reason. What is the reason for people? I suppose the reason to get ready for death, for people who think all there is this life. Well, yeah, I mean, you don't have to worry about a future life even. I think even if you don't even think about a future life, that's another discussion, we'll talk about it. But it's powerful to realize that life is short and you know you could die at any time. And then I think the consequence of that is you won't waste it. And that's the key point here as well. If you've got something good and you know it will end, you do not want to waste it. There's no way. It's very clear. You go to a very special party, you know, with your best new boyfriend on the planet. You know it's only going to be a few hours. There's no way in the world you're going to sit there on the toilet for 3 hours or I've got to make a phone call first and spend 2.5 hours making a phone call. No, you don't want to waste it. So you make the most of it. We get that idea. We understand that. And that's a really powerful point. You make the most of it because you know it's going to change. But we have this inertia, especially when we're depressed, you know, or angry or because this view of seeing things as unchanging is something intellectual. You don't learn it at school. Your mother doesn't teach you. It's deep in our bones as an assumption. We believe things like this for so long. This is why, if we study this, you know, traditional packaging of the Tibetan Buddhist teachings, this Lam Rim, the very first point a teacher gets us to think about is how we've got this life is precious. And that already is something we don't often think. We usually think our life is hopeless. I'm no good, can't be bothered, nothing to do. I'm bored, I'm depressed. What's the point of life? It's a very common view. A very common view. So in other words, we don't see it's precious. We don't even know what it means. What do you mean my life is precious? You know? So the idea here is, if we relate it to okay, so try to get the sense that your life is precious, that you've got good opportunities. So the whole idea is of not wasting it. I think that this is not how we think, but I think it's a good one to think. Is, you know, we know if you've got a resource, some kind of resource, even a garden of vegetables, you would never waste your, you've grown your vegetables. There's no way you just let them sit there and go to seed. No way. You would be, that would be a waste. You know that, you know that. So we get that concept, not wasting. So you wouldn't waste those vegetables because you know how hard you've worked to plant them. They've grown, they're looking so delicious, and now you just let them go to seed. That would be a tragic waste. That's the, so that's, we know that the garden is like a resource. We know money is like that. Money is like that. Money is this powerful thing, you know, that is it's basically a resource. I mean, if you analyze, if you look at, you know, it's like if you, and this is why I think the Buddha is saying we don't know the value of this human life we've got. We don't see it as a resource. We don't know what to do with it. We don't know the purpose of it. We don't, I mean, we're all these different views, you know. But the Buddhist idea is what this incredible potential to transform our mind. That's the goal. That's the whole point in Buddhism. So therefore, if you knew that, then while you've got this opportunity, your mind conjoined with the human body and human conditions, it's a precious resource. And then you increase that wish not to waste this life by thinking you're going to die. But the vegetables will go to seed if you don't pick them and eat them now. So just by contemplating these ideas. So the first one is to realize that actually our life itself, our body, the combination of this body and this mind is a resource. It's an odd way to think, but it's very practical. If you've got, you know, like a, got a box of money, but you have no idea what it is. These little oblong pieces of paper, you know, with boring pictures on them. You've never heard, it's a very simple example, but you've never heard of money. You just look at it as boring little bits of oblong, smelly paper with boring pictures on it, too small to do anything with, and you don't know what it is, so you just throw it in the bin. I mean, it's just such a dumb example. But when you know what it is, you know it's a resource. In itself, it's just a piece of green paper with paper with print green on it. And apparently it's so filthy. Apparently money, they've analyzed, is the most putrid, disgusting stuff you've ever had. It's got heroin and disgusting, everything possible disgusting on it. But we see $1, we found a treasure, you know, don't we? We don't care how dirty it is, it doesn't matter. Squashed up and dirty, and if it's crooked, you know, if it's torn, we'll put tape on it. Because we know it's a resource. It's a really simple example. It's a resource. You can't tell by looking. So this body, the same, is this big fat old body, you know, all wrinkled and old and about to die. I think, what's the point of it? Most people don't think their life is worthwhile. I mean, it's very depressing, really, because we don't know what to do with our mind. And of course, I suppose, because if we only think that our mind is in this life, and as we're getting fat and old, you know, all we want to do is die. And we're hastening people's death now more and more, isn't it? Because we don't think, what's the point of life? You know, I'm really dead, we think. But this Buddhist approach here is says our mind, when we think of this life as precious, what it means is you compare. It's a comparison. So on this planet, how we talk about, you know, maybe 1% of people have a computer and 5% this. I mean, we're one of those 1%. We're one of the 0.01%. Not of rich people, but of fortunate people. Got our wits about us, got a reasonable body. We have a wish to practice a spiritual path, got the conditions in which to do it. A whole series of, you tick all the boxes, you know. Then you realize, wow, how fortunate I am. We have to do that, because otherwise we just think, what's the point of life? It's a very common way to think, what's the point of life? You know? Got born and you die. So thinking of yourself as a resource is a thing you use to get something. So how do we use, what's the practical way to use this life? Well, this Buddhist approach is we have this mind, and it's got this unbelievable potential. This is the whole point. The body, who cares? It's useful to have a nice body. If it's not too much pain, you can do something with it. But the only purpose of it is to help to develop your mind. That's the particular Buddhist point. This consciousness of ours, this continuity of mental consciousness that can be transformed into a happy, blissful, radiant, clear, wise, compassionate mind You have this marvelous potential. That's the key. That's the only thing that'll energize us to want to not waste this precious life. I have to think about that. And if we have a confidence in that, then we'll be able to have not want to waste a life. First, see we are fortunate. If your mind has got this potential, but even just having a human body and a human mind together is good. But if you're so poor that you have to work 18 hours a day to get a bowl of rice, what good is that? You've got no time to work on your mind. It's just tragic, you know. So we have this miracle of leisure. We might be rich, and we want to use it to develop our mind. Why? To get happy. Don't think of it as some kind of punitive thing. Oh, I've got to work on my mind. How depressing. No, you want to be happy, babe. Very simply, Buddha's got methods to how to get happy. Don't think it's anything else. It's not. And then how to help others get happy. So it's not kind of like you've got to give up misery, you know. And he's giving up misery, but it's getting happiness. Think of it that way. Who doesn't want to get happy? And it's your mind that makes you happy. So don't waste it. It's a precious resource. We are ourselves. This body and mind combination is a precious resource. So how tragic to waste it, you know. And then you increase that wish not to waste it by realizing it's impermanent. And you will die. Don't know when. So a sense of urgency should come, but not like panic. We panic already. A sense of urgency, you know. When you know those veggies, every day you leave them in the ground, they're going to go to seed, you miss the opportunity. They're such good examples, you know. So simple. You wouldn't bear to waste them. Money's the same. You wouldn't just tip it down the toilet, you know. Something simple. It's a resource. So we are a resource. We've got to remind ourselves though, because we're dominated by depression and anxiety and, you know, low self-esteem and anger, and wonder what. So we have to think about this. And then start to get in touch with the reality of impermanence. And then make the most of this life. As Lama Zopa says, it's really best to think I'm going to die today. That's too difficult, you know, because we don't believe it, basically. We don't believe it. Because the grasping at permanent me is so intense, it's so primordial. We know absolutely with intelligence that we will die, but we just don't believe it. There's so much fear, so much denial. Pretty true. It's very fascinating. And that's because we're attached to me. We're attached to this, even though we hate ourselves, it's kind of ironic. We hate ourselves. Our body's horrible. We're too fat. We're too this. We're too that. But we're so attached to ourselves, you know. Very funny. So just really think about impermanence. And don't just go, oh, impermanence, impermanence. Open your eyes and look at the world. You see people, one of the first things is you see people dying every day. Birds die, dogs die, ants die, rats die, people die, happy people die, suffering people die. But it's too distant from us. It doesn't touch us, you know. When it gets a bit closer, our family and our beloveds, then it gets closer. But still, we don't get the message. We get devastated if your beloved dies. But the only time, and this just takes practice, the only time it'll be a wake-up call for you is when you then say, this will happen to me. So Mary, for example, today, her daddy died. He's 90-something. His daddy died. But this is why we think of living people and dying people. So we feel like Mary probably feels like a living person. You know, she's only 60 or something, let's say, but daddy's 90-something. He's been a dying person for a while. Kind of watching the clock, you know, is daddy dead yet? Sort of. But even that alone is very true, but it's a very bizarre way to think. He's a living person, which means you haven't been told you've got cancer, so you're a living person. You don't look like you're old yet, so you must be a living person. And then suddenly, you know, you've been told you've got cancer or something. And when we say she's a dying person, it's very scary. We don't know what to do with a dying person, do we? We don't know how to talk to them. We don't know how to think about them because they're not like a real person anymore. We really believe this, you know. But as Lama Zopa says, living people die before dying people every day. It's a fact. But these concepts are so strong, and we believe that they're a reality, you know. So this woman who said she lived in fear every day of her husband dying, So then you think, so in a sense, you think, well, she's doing what just talking about. She's recognizing he'll die. No, she's living in fear of it happening. In other words, desperately hoping it won't. Well, that's completely irrational, isn't it? Like you've got a rose in your vase, and it's beautiful and fresh, and you live in fear every day of it dying. Well, it will die, so why not enjoy it before it dies, instead of living in fear of it dying, which is just attachment and grasping at it. Same with your husband. So I said, recognize that he will die. And then the conclusion is not fear, but I therefore must not waste this opportunity. The veggies won't last long. Don't live in fear of them, in fear of them turning to seed. Use them. So your hubby, he will die. Definite. So meanwhile, he's there now. Recognize that his nature is that he's impermanent. He is on the way to death. Those roses are on the way to wilting. Those veggies are on the way to going to seed. That's fact. So what you do is you kind of incorporate the reality of impermanence into your life. It goes into the background. Whereas now it's in the front of our face, freaking us out. Because we're hoping it won't happen. Living in fear of it is hoping it won't happen. Just once you become familiar with the reality, you know that you're impermanent. And then every time you see people die, you go, that'll happen to me. And you start to get used to it. And then what happens is you become more realistic. You're more realistic and therefore literally less fearful. And therefore you don't waste your life. Because you know things are passing right in front of you. They're changing every second. So you move along with the changingness, instead of resisting it or living in denial of it. So then you won't waste your life. You won't waste your life then. And therefore you become more happy. And then because you're incorporating the reality of impermanence into your bones, when the time does come, it won't be shocking. You will be ready. It's just practical, really. It's just practical. You got to think it. You got to think it. You got to do it every day. Not sit on your cushion. I'm not just saying that. But open your eyes and see the world. That'll happen to me. That's the only way to make it. Bring it home to yourself. You can have sadness and compassion. You can have fear of death. But until you say that'll happen to me, it'll never be a wake-up call. It's always someone else dying. First of all, it's the strangers die. That doesn't even touch you. It's a bit closer to home and the family die. That freaks you out. But you still haven't got the point. This will happen to me. That's when it becomes real. That's the lesson. That's the one. Have your sadness. Be compassionate. But that'll happen to me. That'll be me soon, That'll be me. They'll be saying, look, TNL will say, oh, Robina just died. I'm going to do medicine Buddhist tonight for Robina. She died, That'll be me soon. Instead of saying Mary Lou Morgenberg, it'll be Robina Courtin. She's dead. So think like that. So don't waste your life. It'll happen one day. And as we know, do we know we're getting old? We notice we're getting old? Have you noticed we're getting old? Anybody know they're not? Does anybody believe they're not getting old? And doesn't time go quicker? Do you think times go quicker? Doesn't it? It does go quicker, doesn't it? It's just scary as hell. I can't believe it's sort of like in the morning I get up and they go, well, I just got up. Yes, I just got up a minute ago. But it was 24 hours ago, Then you go to bed. I've done this before. I wind down my thing and get into the bed, lie down, put the thing up. I just did this before, a second ago. It's like that. It's very powerful. So what's happened if we do die? What's the point? What's the trip here? What's Buddha's deal, The Tibetans make it, really got a lot of teachings on this. It's different in the Theravadins, it's different in the Zens. The Tibetans, because the Vajrayana and all the tantric teaching, but much more sophisticated. There's all the sophisticated body of knowledge there coming from centuries, about our subtler physical energies and the process of death itself. So it's extremely helpful to be more analytical about what happens at the time of death and to use it as a meditation, to go through these 8 stages, to imagine them, So let's just discuss that now. I forget if we did this last week. So of course, this whole process of dying is described in 8 stages of kind of deconstruction of all the bits and pieces that make up a person, based, of course, on this model that the physical body is made of the 4 elements, and it's conjoined with a consciousness, a mind. We're not discussing the brain. We're discussing the capacity for cognition, the mind, consciousness, which is not physical. That's why it's hard to get our head around it. It's not physical. So they talk about it. We've got gross consciousness, inextricably linked to gross physicality. This body here, a bag of bones, okay? And that's all we think of, and that's all we posit in the materialist world, isn't it? The body, the brain, the bits of the physical bits, that's it. Because all we can see with our eyes and microscopes. So that's the grosser level, the grosser level. Then we have subtle consciousness. I think this is very similar to the Ayurvedic system from centuries ago and from the Chinese system, centuries ago. And this is certainly the Tibetan medical system, totally based on this model of the body and the mind. So the subtle level, so the grosser level is our sensory consciousnesses. Remember that the word consciousness or mind, they're used synonymously. So when we say eye consciousness, we're not referring to the eyeball. We're referring to the capacity of your mind, that part of your mind that functions through the medium of the eyeball to have a cognition of shape and color, ear consciousness, tactile consciousness. So we can see. So then, and clearly, if the sensory consciousness is not physical, then obviously it's intimately, you can't see that, but it's what makes the body function. You know, that's the Buddhist view. It's not the materialist view at all. So body and consciousness, mind are inextricably linked at this grosser level. So the first stages of death, and this whole process is exactly the same as going to sleep every day. That's why great yogis can use their sleep to become familiar with this process. So then the gross body and the gross mind. Then we have subtle consciousness, which is our mental states. They are more subtle necessarily. So clearly in our body at a grosser level in day-to-day life, we can be familiar, we can be aware of our mental thoughts, that's clear. We've also got much subtler level of mental consciousness, which you can access by doing those meditation techniques. And these great yogis have invented this single pointed concentration meditation technique that enabled the Indians 3,000 years ago, that enabled you to access these more subtle levels of your mental consciousness. So the grosser level, which is what we live at, is conceptuality, thoughts. So the way they describe the subtle consciousness and the subtle level of physicality that's inextricably linked to that consciousness is very different. It's obviously not neuroscience, quite a different model. So they say we're made up of 72,000 subtle channels, the subtle nervous system. The entirety of our body internally is completely pervaded by our subtle nervous system, okay? 72,000 subtle, like nerves or channels, they say, in this subtle nervous system. There's a central channel which starts towards the back of your crown. If your spine went all the way, it's just in front of the spine. And it goes all the way down and ends at the penis for the male and at the cervix for the female. Then you've got 2 side channels that start here and go up and then go down alongside either side of the central channel, ending at the same place. And they're all kind of messy. They sound nice and clean. Then you've got all these other ones, all these side, thousands and thousands of these other side ones. So at different points, all these channels come together and kind of constrict at what they call the chakras. It's a kind of constriction of a whole bunch of channels. And I'll explain why. Yeah, I'll explain that. So then they've got one a lot here, at the throat, at the heart, below the navel, and 3 along the male organ and internally for the female. So the point about these constricted places, chakras, and they sound kind of exciting or something, they're a drag, you know, because they're all constricted and locked together. So the thing is, we've got what's going on, what's flowing in all those channels is different. If we're made of the 4 elements, okay, earth, air, fire, and water, this is the model they use. So the subtle physical energy called air energy or wind energy is coursing through all those channels and is inextricably linked to all your different states of mind. Like I say, your Tibetan doctor will feel your pulses. Go to Dr. Punsog, who's here now. She'll feel your pulses and she'll feel the imbalance of different wind energies in your body to recognize. And she will know, for example, that the particular imbalance is related to your attachment. Because all those, you see, all the states of mind, this is clearly not neuroscience, you know, it's obvious. Your mental states are in those channels connected inextricably to those different wind energies. So she'll feel the imbalance and she'll know it's related to your attachment energy. That's why you're having panic attacks, for example. Or maybe you're very disturbed and get very angry very easily, and she'll know that by feeling your pulses. It's very subtle. And because the Tibetan medical system is based on the Vajrayana and it's based on the Buddhist model of the mind and based on understanding karma, some of these Tibetan doctors are incredible. I remember one time when I was working for Wisdom Publications, one book we did about Tibetans coming into exile. And in New York, this old doctor, Tibetan doctor, was invited by some young doctors at a local hospital to do the rounds of the patients in the morning, you know. So the way we do our medicine, you've got to have all the notes and you have to ask the person how you feel, and we can say what to do. But this Tibetan doctor, he didn't know any English. He was given one old man to check. They gave him as an example, and he sat there for 45 minutes feeling his pulses. And then he proceeded to give a complete description of this man's health from the day he was born. The doctors were quite impressed. You understand? I mean, you can't get anything more holistic than that. Do you understand? And because some of these are really holy beings and they're clairvoyant. So the one time, one of my friends, her kid, young boy, clearly super intelligent, one of these super intelligent boys, really berserk energy, you know. She was freaking out about him. The stupid bloody world called him autistic or something. I said, for God's sake, talk to Lama Zopa. She works for the office, the international office. So she spoke to Rinpoche. Rinpoche is clairvoyant, so he knows the boy's mind. So he gives him mantras to do and can tell you something special. But then I said, why don't you send a picture of him to the Tibetan doctor? There's one doctor in Dharamsala that I know. And I give it a few of his symptoms and show a picture. And he wrote back and said, yep, that's how yogis behave. Just seeing his photo, you know, because he's clairvoyant, you can see. So this is why, I mean, it's incredible. So they say, you know, really you can't, Buddha says you really can't begin to help people until you're clairvoyant. Which is pretty shocking for us because we have no such thing, you know. I think it's weird and wacky. So this is such an integrated system because it's completely based on your mind. And when we understand how karma works, this is so helpful, you know. When we understand all our different states of mind are connected to the wind energies, and they're necessarily more subtle. So the grosser consciousness of the senses, that's obviously grosser. And so it's connected to the gross body, but the more subtle level. That's why, you see, when you go to sleep, the first 4 stages, we're going to go through them. Earth element ceases, water element ceases, your eye consciousness ceases, your ear consciousness, these different things cease. And by the time you go to sleep, we know your grosser sensory consciousness has ceased. We know that. The body is not functioning. So in this system, what's happened is all the airs and the states of mind connected to those air energies are all left all the side channels and have all gone into the central channel. So that's why, you know, so when your consciousness, when you go to sleep, your mental states have calmed down, no gross conceptuality, your sensory consciousness has calmed down because the mind, as they say, the mind rides on the winds. So when the winds have all gone into the central channel, when those chakras have opened and the winds can go into the central channel, the states of mind connected to the winds stop functioning. That's why you become unconscious. And that's why if your winds are a bit berserk and you can't sleep, you know. Many people can't sleep properly. the wind stay, you know, berserk, and the mind stays all awake. So with this, so what we're trying to do, what the yogis are trying to do in their meditation is to have all the wind energies connected to the grosser levels of consciousness go into the central channel, and then more than that, become even more subtle and go up the central channel and from down, and all come into the very subtle level at the heart chakra, which is called very subtle consciousness. So this deconstruction process of death, that's what happens naturally. But the yogis try to replicate this in their meditations. And it's tremendously powerful and tremendously difficult. Our minds are berserk, you know. I mean, our minds are berserk, we know that. Even when we're asleep, you can't sleep properly because you have these endless crazy dreams. We don't have much peace in our mind, you know, because our minds are berserk. So these yogis, with their incredible practice, through their practices, are learning to get concentration, which means calming the wind energies down by calming the mind down. And then they're like these technicians. They can get the winds all to come into the central channel, and then more than that, they can get them, you know, go down up the central channel and up until it gets more subtle, more subtle, more subtle through these 8 stages, to the point where it gets to the 8th stage, and now everything has gone down to the subtlest level. The grosser level of your senses have ceased. Your grosser body ceased. Your grosser conceptuality has ceased. All the winds have left, all the channels. Even now, only the subtlest level, which we never access, and we know way positive this is existing in our culture. No such thing, you know. You've got to what they call extremely subtle consciousness. And that's inextricably linked to the extremely subtle wind energy. And these are inextricably linked. So all the yogis want to do is get to that level. Why? Is because that's the most potent, most capable, most brilliant level of consciousness, where all the grosser levels have ceased, and you're able to utilize that to literally realize emptiness, and even the greatest yogis get enlightened. There's a chapter in Rinpoche's book called Death is What the Yogis Have Been Waiting For. Because this happens naturally at death, so they train all their lives, so they can't wait to get to the associated areas. Because the subtlest level of the clear light mind that you get at death, it's very hard to get that in daily life, unless under very specific circumstances. So for them, they're training. And that subtlest level of mind, it's like the most subtle, therefore the most unencumbered by all the nonsense. It's the purest, subtlest level of your mind. And the fact of the matter is, we go to sleep every night, and we go to it to some degree. We've died countless lifetimes, but we've never used it. We've never used it. We didn't know how, you know. So all the sadhanas in that chapter in the book, all the sadhanas from Highest Yoga Tantra are all geared to help us do this. You know, it's like Lama says, she says, Tantra is like technology, it's technical, you know. So to understand the death process is really important. And then if you've taken an empowerment, like Yamantaka or Haruka or Vajrayogini, any of the highest yoga tantra practices, you need to learn to know how to do these practices with your sadhana, with your 6-session guru yoga, for example. You need to learn it. You need to get asked to get teachings, please, so you know what you're doing, you know. It's the most powerful way to prepare for death, Rinpoche says. It's very delicious, actually. So in other words, this way of preparing for death is like completely not what we think. It's completely different, you know, because your mind's most subtle then. So you practice. So even for us, we might never get to become a yogini with single point of concentration. At least we can practice our practices properly, utilize those practices we have, the practice, the generation stage, like in the 6-session guru yoga, when you bring the deity into you, and so now my Lama and I dissolve into one, and then you become the Dharmakaya and you meditate on emptiness. That's totally important to do. Then you manifest out of that emptiness as the deity. It's extremely important. I know that Ken Rinpoche came a couple of years ago, and a lot of you got Yamantaka. You need to learn to know what to do. You need to learn, you know, maybe the next time, whoever's knowledgeable should ask for teachings on this. So then you make it worthwhile, and you know what you're doing. So you practice, that's all, practice doing these meditations properly and utilizing it, combining it with the 8 stages of death, practicing, getting ready for death. And in that way, because there's a whole purpose to death. I mean, this is not how we think. Of course it isn't. But you start to realize there's something more there to it. So it becomes much less fearful, you know. And then because you understand karma. I mean, again, one of the major points for a Buddhist to get ready for death, you have to understand karma, which is not wasting this precious life, using it to be as virtuous as you can, living many vows as you can, do as much purification as you can. Even though we're not going to be great yogis and yoginis meditating day and night, you learn to know which practices are most skillful that have the most benefit. You know, it's so important. You have to know what's worthwhile. So living in vows, keeping your samaya with your lamas, purifying every day. These are the tremendously powerful practices. And you know you're not wasting your life. So, okay, the very first stages of death, and this is what happens every time we go to sleep. The earth element, kind of, you know, the earth, kind of, and they say one of the signs of it's starting to go is your body feels very heavy, you know. We know that when you're tired. When you're tired, you can hardly lift your body, you know. So the earth element, the first stage of several things cease. So the first stage of the 8, the earth element begins to cease. The heaviness in the body. You feel like you're sinking. Remember in India, in the 80s and 90s when I was there, and I had hepatitis and malaria. I was close to death. No one knew I had malaria. I thought I just had hepatitis because I was bright yellow. But I also had malaria at the same time, and it was kind of absolutely debilitating. You're living in this intense fevers, and it's really hot, at 110 degrees every day, no AC, hallucinating. I knew if I didn't get out of India, I'd die. You know, I was bright yellow. Luckily, Air India let me fly. Bright yellow, highly contagious. And my sister Jan was so kind. She flew from Brisbane to Singapore halfway to pick me up because I was so sick. You know, I was hallucinating. As we say in Australia, I didn't know whether I was Arthur or Martha. It's a common disease now. We never know who we are anymore. I mean, we keep changing our genders. We don't know if we're Arthur or Martha. Anyway, I got to Singapore and I was like in heaven. Total, I can't describe to you. It was like heaven. Someone had discovered I had hepatitis. No, I had malaria, so they gave me the pills. That stopped. It was like heaven. I was in this hotel in Singapore overnight, air conditioning. And I thought I'd gone to heaven. I can't describe it. It was utter bliss. But I remember in the bed, I felt like I was sinking. So I was still close to death. The feeling was very vivid, sinking into bed. It was like a shock to get shocked. You know? So anyway, the earth element ceases. At the same time, your eye consciousness ceases. We discussed this last time. We had that when you get tired. You know, your eyes kind of glaze over. You can hardly keep your lids open, isn't it? You can't see things very clearly. Everything's beginning to deconstruct, you know. There's a particular kind of thing. There's a set of things that they call the 5 wisdoms. There are particular ways at a very gross level that we function mentally, that have a function at each of these stages to cease. So this first one, they call it mirror-like, kind of this mirror-like wisdom. Everything's crystal clear. You see many things very clearly, don't we? And that starts to go. Same time as the eye consciousness, same time as the earth element at this first stage. Then also they say there's this subtle kind of sign, a subtle thing that happens. We never notice it, but the great yogis can. And you, so when you do this meditation, you kind of imagine you're seeing it. And this is called, this very first sign is they call it mirage-like. It's like a mirage. And you know, a mirage is like the interplay of earth and water, isn't it? And that's what's happening now, because the earth element is ceasing. Now the water element prevails. That's the first sign. Now then this goes, at the time of death, this can take about 2 hours. Or if you die suddenly, like in a violent death, it happens like in an instant, you know. So the second stage, your one of the crucial ones are the 5 aggregates. So the first one is called form, which is similar to the earth element ceasing, but you know, your bodies begin to not function. The first of the 5 elements. And the first of the 5 wisdoms, the mirror-like wisdom, the eye consciousness, and the earth element, and the mirage. The second one,
form feeling, this capacity to distinguish between pleasant and unpleasant and indifferent. This begins to kind of merge, you know. You know yourself when you get older, you don't get so much excitement anymore from the three. You know, who cares? Food's boring. It's not so exciting, you know, the differences between pleasant and unpleasant. Could be like that. So this feeling, it kind of changes. At the same time, form, feeling, yeah, there's kind of an equanimity between those pleasant and unpleasant and different, kind of more kind of broad. That's even different. Form, and then feeling, and then, sorry, my nose. Then, at the same time, second stage, your ear consciousness goes. We all know that. As I said last time, I was sitting there listening, talking to Lou, and I'm sitting upright, my eyes are open, but suddenly I missed the last 10 seconds of what he said. We know that one. Everything's absorbing, everything's going into moving away from all the channel, moving away. Thank you so much, moving away from the channels and gradually going into the central channel. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. So then, at the same time, the sign of the second stage happening is like the interplay of water and the next one, fire. So they say it's sort of like smoky. It's smoke, a vision of smoky, they say. So by now, your eyes, the earth element is going, you know, and then the next one, ears. You're still here. This is why about this point, second and third stages, this is where the really crucial stage is. Because another whole thing that's happening at this point is related to the 12 links of dependent arising. Lord Buddha teaches in the sutras. So at this point, various things are occurring, particularly at the time of death. And about now, when you're starting to lose the plot, mentally, there's a lot of the sixth of the 12 links is called craving. The seventh, maybe seventh, and that's very strong attachment. So anyway, even as you're dying, there's a lot of fear for most people because this attachment is so strong, and it's fear. As Lama Zopa says, this attachment is the main reason there's fear of death. And it's very specifically attachment to holding on to this, not wanting to lose this, more than for any other thing. You know? And anyway, because we identify ourselves as a body, don't we? So we really can feel. And I think if the fact is, because, you know, the Buddha's view is we've had countless lifetimes, so we've died countless times, but we don't remember. But the imprints are deep in there, so the fear must be built up tremendously, you know. So by this point, this is when a person needs you most. As Lama Zopa says, if you want to help anybody in their life, now is when they need you, right this time. It's the exact opposite in our culture. So tragic. At this point when the death process has started, and the other thing, the whole other point here too, just talking generally, is that because as you're getting older and more fragile, or if you're sick or old, and you are moving towards death, your mind, your mental consciousness, because it's sort of almost like you're not really going through these 8 stages yet, but it's like you are. You're losing the plot a little bit already. Your body's more fragile. Your mind goes in and out of consciousness. So your mind is becoming much more sensitive. So when you're getting close to death or very old or sick, the smallest disturbance can overwhelm you, you know, because your mind's getting more sensitive. This is why one of the most important things that Lama Zopa says is to make it where the person, if you're taking care of this dying person, to make it really peaceful for them, beautiful and totally quiet, which is why I'm sorry to say it, hospitals are about the worst place to die, you know. Doctors and nurses are so kind, but it's the worst place possible because it just triggers so much anxiety and fear. Unbearable. And no one knows how to die properly anyway. You know, you're drugged out of your brain. I mean, it's just awful, just awful. That's why, because there's so much more fear, because your mind's so fragile, and it's literally moving towards becoming more subtle. especially when actually now with the time starting, the 8 stages starting. And usually when these 8 stages start, it's not reversible. Sometimes people, there's all these stories, aren't there, about people who look like they're dead and they wake up again. You know, it's not uncommon. Usually this is inexorable, you know. So about this point, the 2nd and 3rd stage, this 12 links one was grasping, very strong attachment. And the next one is even a more powerful level of attachment. They call it grasping. It's got other functions, but it's primordial fear, intense grasping. And they say, you see, one of the functions of attachment, we can see this, is you hold on to something, you're afraid of losing it. This is tremendous. But the other one part of attachment, we know this, is looking forward to something, anticipating something. So Lama Zopa says you can really use that to help people at the time of death. Because the fear, we know when you know you can't any longer hold on to your life, that's what's so primordially shocking when you're dying. Finally, it's happening, you know. You've never dealt with it. So you can't hold on. You just can't stop it. You can't stop it happening. So therefore, you can use, and Michelle says you can use that attachment to make it look forward to something. So if your mummy's a Christian, talk about heaven to her. Let her move away from grasping onto this and look forward to going to heaven. Look forward to God. Tell her how God loves her. I mean, should be perfect for her mind. It'll lift her. You'll completely shift the fear. Because looking forward to something makes you excited, doesn't it? Losing something makes you scared. Really powerful point. So a Buddhist, that's reincarnation. So if you're really serious about reincarnation, and it's quite hard for us to be serious about it. See, that's the thing that really helped me working on this book of Lama Zopa's, editing it over a couple of years, you know, really helped me get very more confident about this idea of karma, which is, you know, that we have to learn to be in charge. We don't believe we're in charge. We think somebody else made us, you know, and if you're a Christian, you completely rely upon God, and I'm not complaining, it can be very helpful to you. And we can also help, we can rely upon the Buddha and our lamas, all of that, it's fine, same. But we have to know that you don't just wait to death to die well. The way to live your life to die well is to abide by the laws of karma. Use your life to grow bucket loads of delicious karmic seeds of virtue, living in your vows, doing your practices, keeping your samadhi. That's how you use your life. That's what not wasting your life means, you know. Then you can be really confident that you haven't wasted your life. You've accumulated lots of virtuous karma, you've purified your mind, and now you're ready for death. You'll be very relaxed about death, you know. But I must say, one of the most painful ways to die is to die with regret of a wasted life. So wasted life doesn't mean you didn't walk up Mount Everest or make $4 million. You know, wasted life is not using your mind properly, that's all, not enriching your mind with virtue and goodness every day. That's the way to put it. Then you'll be happy. Then the fear won't be so bad because you're ready for death. So then, because you're more familiar, you're really taking karma seriously, using your life well, practicing patience, practicing virtue, doing your practice every day to the best of your ability, living in your vows, keeping your samadhi pure, you'll be very happy with yourself. So you're really programming your mind in the best possible way. And so then also that includes, and this is something for me working on this book really helped me, realizing that you're going to die, and then you think, well, and then what? Die is one thing. So when I start to think about, don't think, oh, I'm going to die. Think, I'm going to go to a next life. It's sort of like, you know, if you really, I always remember, it sounds so funny, but I remember this time, I was in Puerto Rico one time. I did a retreat, an editing retreat. And it was a lovely place. I was in boring old California, in the boring old redwoods. It's just these big fat trees that hide the sky and it's all drippy and wet. I don't know how anybody likes them. But I know one time I went to that place, Yosemite, and I gave a talk. And it's like a church for those people. Do you understand? And I said all these boring old rocks. It was like criticizing God. It was so shocking because I just find it boring, all these boring old rocks, you know, or boring old trees. I mean, the trees are okay. They do a good job. I'm happy, but leave them alone. I preferred to see the sky. I mean, it was anyway so shocking, you know. So then these boring old redwoods, so it was all drippy and wet, and it was winter. I was working at Land of Medicine Buddha, so someone invited me to Puerto Rico, December. It's a cute little island that America bought, like Mr. Trump's trying to buy Greenland, you know. They bought Puerto Rico. It's a lovely people. They say they're some of the happiest people on the planet. It's true. They're really lovely people. And it's so nice. It's a lovely place. And I was sort of a tiny, 4 million people live in a baby island. And I had this lovely place. Someone gave me a nice place to do my retreat by the beach, you know. And I bought this piece of pink, kind of stretchy material to wear as a sarong. I didn't have any bathing suit. So I thought, and but everybody, I thought people just think I've got cancer with my bald head. They all knew I was a Buddhist nun. They always did like this, you know. So my pink sarong, I lay in the sun in my pink sarong, and I swam in my pink sarong, and I did everything in my pink sarong, all these restaurants. It was a beautiful place. So what I'm getting at is it was 9 weeks impermanent. So when it's 9 weeks, you know, it was only a small period. You see the end coming. You know the end is coming, so you absolutely don't waste it. I find that a really good example. So every day I look at the calendar and I go, well, you know, 8 weeks and 7 weeks. My God, it's going quickly. Don't waste it. So what don't waste it meant was go to the restaurants, go to swim, go here, go there. Don't just lie in bed feeling miserable. Do you understand? But every day getting closer and closer. And then when I had to finally, and that's the point, so that constantly I'm thinking I have to leave here. I have to leave this apartment. But then I realized I've got to go somewhere once I walk out the door. And in fact, it was Boston, where it was 20 degrees below freezing or something. So the point is about death. It's true, you've got to die, but you've got to focus on what's next. So if you're materialist, there's nothing next. Accept that, fine. If you're a Christian, you look forward to heaven. So everything changes in your mind. You're not just, so, you know, for me, if I was living in fear of having to leave, if I hadn't prepared to go somewhere else, I hadn't bought my air ticket, I was living in fear, I don't want to go. And then Rita, the lady, had to drag me out onto the doorstep with my case, freaking out, nowhere to go, I hadn't prepared. It's such a dumb example, but it's so true. So I had to have an air ticket. I had to know where I was going. Once I said, bye-bye, Rita, house gone like a dream. So also, when you know you know you've got to go somewhere after, like death, go to the next life, then of course you're going to relax a bit. If you know you're impermanent, you're not going to keep fighting and arguing. You're going to forgive your old brother. You're not going to go on for 6 weeks worrying about things, you know, or never giving up your anger and resentment and bitterness. Think what your mother did when you were 2 years old, you know. God almighty. Move forward. So at the same time, in that apartment, it was true, it was really delicious and the sea was beautiful, but I realized I was going to leave any minute. So you can't grasp too strongly my cushions, my bed, and like the guys next door where the music was too loud. I didn't think to sue them. I was going to leave soon. It didn't matter. You're more easygoing, you know. So I was ready to go. I had my air ticket, I got a taxi, and I bopped off to Boston. So the same, you've got to die. So then this is the other one. How are we going for time? There's 2 options. If you get it clear with karma, you've basically got 2 options where you're going to go after you die. You don't want certain options, so you don't even contemplate those. You contemplate the 2 options you do want to consider. You're going to go to, you're going to go to Chicago, or you're going to go to Italy. You decide. And you don't just go, one of the commonest things among Buddhists is, well, I don't really mind what kind of rebirth I have, as long as it's beneficial. Excuse me, make a bloody decision. You don't just go, where would you like to go on vacation, Robina, or wherever it's best. You can't buy an air ticket to wherever it's best. You've got to decide. So I really realized I've got to decide where I want to be reborn. You've got to decide. Then you create the causes. I know I've got to go to Boston, so I have to buy a ticket to Boston. So I got 2 options. One is a human rebirth. You don't want to be born a dog. You don't want an ant. Not to mention others. You just don't want that. It's a hassle. So therefore, if you want to be born a human, this is really not complicated. Then you've got to know what are the causes to get a human body. Well, you live in vows. Junior school, you purify your mind. You live in your vows. This is the cause. Easy. You can put your feet up all day eating popcorn and watching Netflix, be ticking over virtuous karma 24 hours a day by living in vows and doing your purification. They are the causes. They are the causes of getting a decent human birth, good mind, good experiences, and a good environment. And then you practice and you access Dharma. They are the causes. It's not complicated. Are we communicating? So you home in on it. You be practical instead of, oh, I'm going to die. Oh, no. And if you believe Lama's, I hope you go to hell for 42 eons. No, he's just trying to wake you up. It's okay. Or you can go to Amitabha's Pure Land. I never liked the thought of Pure Land. I thought they were boring, you know. I thought I want to be a human, right? Then I thought, then I remember when I was doing the book and I hadn't quite finished it. And Venerable Holly, soon after Rinpoche, this is 10 years ago, soon after Rinpoche's stroke, he started to teach again, and he'd given a talk on Amitabha. He'd given initiation and a teaching on Amitabha's Pure Land. And there's a chapter in there, you know, pray to go to Amitabha's Pure Land. So the thing is, a Pure Land, what it is, okay. We know you got Buddha. And in sutras, you have Mr. Buddha, this one up here, looking handsome and is nice, you know, meditating like this one. He's the monk. That's the manifestation of the first stages of practice, controlled body, speech, and mind. Then you have the Vajrayana, the Bodhisattva path and the Vajrayana. So then you got all the other cute ones, you know. Yeah. Here, all these ones with fancy dresses and penises and vaginas and looking cute and lovely with nice breasts and no clothes on. All this lot. And all these, this is Tantra, okay? And they are the same. They're all Buddhas, but they're all manifestations of different psychological qualities that you either want to cultivate or you want to purify. That's it. It's just psychology. So, you know, and there's 5 Buddha families, and each one represents a purified main one of the delusions. So the Amitabha Pure Land is a manifestation of Amitabha is a manifestation of purified attachment. Akshobhya is a manifestation of purified anger. Each like that. There are 5 of them, and then underneath them are the thousands and thousands of other Buddhas, each of which is the manifestation of a particular quality you want to cultivate or a delusion you want to purify. That's it. So okay, another point. It's like a family tree. So you've got Buddha, and the actual Buddha is the enlightened mind. It's known as the Dharma Kaya. It's literally when you're Buddha, you've given up all gross bodies. You don't need bodies anymore. You don't need all the gross level. Your mind is pure, unmanifest, pervading the universe, infinite wisdom, infinite compassion, infinite power. That's the meaning of the word Buddha. That's the Dharmakaya. But who can access that? We're too stupid. So out of compassion, those Buddha minds manifest in 2 kinds of bodies to be of benefit to poor old sentient beings like you and me. One kind is known as the Nirmanakaya, the emanation body, which effectively is Shakyamuni Buddha. He's the example in this world. He's a human being. The Buddha's mind manifesting in the emanation body, the one that we can see, you and I can see. There's the supreme emanation bodies, which is the Buddhas, the ones who aspect of a Buddha. But it can be anything. Buddhas can manifest as anything. They're all Nirmanakayas. But then you have a subtler one that the Bodhisattva, Arya Bodhisattvas, those who realize emptiness, that they can see. And that's a subtle one that we can't see. And that's the Sambhogakaya, the enjoyment body. Okay? So all those Buddhas in Tantra are the Sambhogakaya. You know, do you understand? And there's millions of them. Now, of course, because they're taking on this aspect of a body, they've got a subtle light body. It's subtle, you can't see it with your gross eyes, but also they live in an environment. So the whole environment is the Pure Land. So that's what a mandala is. A mandala, you know, you see all those round things. That's just an architectural drawing of the abode of a particular Buddha. And so as many Buddhas as there are, they've all got their abode, all got a particular environment, which is also more subtle and is also seen as a manifestation of the same Buddha's mind. So a Pure Land is that. All right, clear? That's a Pure Land. So obviously to be born in one of those, it's not the same as a God realm. A God realm is in samsara, and that's just if you're a really good person, you get born it's like going to heaven, but it doesn't last. But here, practicing lots of virtue, and I mean, Lama Zopa says in the chapter, many Pure Lands, you need to have high realization. You need to have realized emptiness to get there. So forget that. But this one, Tsongkhapa says, you don't need to have you don't need to realize emptiness. You just have to have particular virtues. He lists all the causes. So, and then also the wishing. This sounds so hilarious to us. But one of the main causes of doing anything, this really sounds funny, is wanting it. This sounds so ridiculous, but analyze that. If you have to first have the thought, I want an ice cream before anything happens to get an ice cream. Would you agree with that? Nothing, it won't even arise in your mind. You will never go to get an ice cream. You've got to have the thought, and that's called intention, and that's mental karma. That's the bare bones first step in creating an action. I want, and then you follow through. So I want, you think, I want to go to be born in Amitabha's Pure Land. You think that, and then you create the causes. So I've got to say I want to go to Boston when I left, but I can't just say I want to go to Boston and think someone will buy me an air ticket. I've got to do it myself. So you are in charge. So you decide. Now, for me, there's this prayer. It's in the book, and I decided I recited it into my iPad. So when I hit the pillow, I turn it on and I listen to this prayer. About 10 minutes. Lama Tsongkhapa, this lovely prayer of going to Amitabha's Pure Land, just to put the imprint into my mind, So I have a very sincere wish, to go to Amitabha's Pure Land. So I figure if I miss the plane to Amitabha's Pure Land, I'll get a human body. If I miss the plane there, I'm in trouble. Okay? So there's two options. Well, something you sort of, I think, okay, I've got to think this way. It's two options. Get on with it, Robina. If I'm saying I'm a Buddhist, don't just pretend. Goodbye. See you, darling. Do you understand? It sounds so hilarious. But if you're serious about it, if you're a serious Christian, a serious Muslim, you can't just pretend. You've got to be real. Take your philosophy seriously. And if you don't, then be quiet, please. You can't just second guess, Do you understand? It's up to us. Anyway, it's now, since that book, I've become more clear. So then, obviously, if I want to go to Boston, I don't start heading off towards, New York. You get lost. Therefore, you've got to know what road you've got to go on. You've got to know what steps you've got to go through and keep tracking on the way you're getting there. Same with your mind. So know what the causes are. The very first stages of practice are the causes of getting a good human body. It's practical. It's not mystical and fearful, which is how we're used to thinking of religion, Bring it on the earth. So are there any questions? We have time to go home. I haven't finished the 8 stages yet. Any questions, people? No questions. Okay, I'll keep going. So by the second or third stage, already the mind's very fragile, very sensitive, and a lot of fear. No matter what happens, it's still fear because it's craving and grasping kick in, That's why the best way to be with a dying person is to be loving, solid as a rock, kind, steady, stable, making a person feel confident, That's the major thing. And if they're a practitioner, you know what they want, you have to take care of them. And of course, you're not always in charge, though. I mean, when my sister died, all my other sisters ran the show. I just had to have them, they're all shouting and yelling and laughing and singing the Sydney Swans football team song. And my dead sister, all I want to do is be quiet and say the mantras. Well, I couldn't tell them to be quiet, I just sort of whisper into her ear, do my best. But if you're not in charge, you do what you can. If you're in charge, then it's really clear. And that also means if someone's dying slowly, you'd be very cautious about who you have come to visit. I mean, I know when one of my sister's husbands died and he's got 7 kids and about 32 grandchildren. That's okay, maybe. But they all, the day before he died, and he was so exhausted from cancer. I think it was like that. And all people are loving and shouting and hugging and crying. I mean, a person who's dying, what they need most is peace, some space, a space, because you're so exhausted by everything. And the mind is so sensitive, You've got to be wise anyway. And especially troublemakers or people the person who's dying is very attached to. Like you wouldn't have pets. This is very shocking for us. You don't have your pets in the dying person's room because they're so attached to their pets. When there's any object of very strong attachment, it disturbs their mind, We don't get that in our culture. We don't think about that. So then you keep the objects that they're attached to out of the way. People they hate or angry or get upset with, keep them out. You really try to make it as peaceful and as conducive as possible for them to be calm and internal. Allow them to go inside, And then whatever you talk about or let them hear should be beneficial. So that's why, again, another whole thing is mantras and prayers, because they're so powerful and they invoke the Buddhas. You know, just have them quietly playing. Your animal as well completely can help. Even when they're in a coma, you can still often hear, you know. It's very powerful. So whatever goes on in that room should be conducive for that person to die peacefully and virtuously. It's very skillful, you know. So by the second stage, third stage now, by the fourth stage, your ears, your eyes, your earth element, your water element, your fire element, the heat is already beginning to leave the body. And then by the time the fourth one, tactile ceases, tongue ceases, and even you can't even, you know, even the third stage, you might have your ugly old uncle on one side of the bed and your beloved sister on the other, but you can't tell the difference. You're losing the plot quite seriously. You can't. And by the fourth stage, you can't put any thoughts together. You don't know who you are. You finally, the grosser level is completely ceased, and then you stop breathing. So that's when, of course, in our culture, you're ready for the body bag, but you're not. Your mental consciousness is now there. It doesn't mean you're conscious. It doesn't mean you're aware of it. It's like you go to sleep, maybe one night you have no memory of any dreams, but your consciousness is still there, you know. And this is where, okay, sorry, I missed the vital point. I missed a crucial point. By about the second and the third stage, which is when the sixth and the seventh of these links, or the seventh and the eighth, the grasping kicks in. That grasping is the trigger for the number 2 link, which is the karmic seed in your bank vault that will become the cause of your next rebirth. That is triggered. So we want one of our virtuous karmic seeds to be triggered. We want one of our non-killing karmic seeds to be triggered, especially if it's been practiced in the context of keeping vows. That's the specific karmic seed we need to be triggered, because that will cause you to get a good human birth. And if you've lived in vows, it'll cause you to get a good human birth with good mind, good conditions, and good experiences. And because you practice, access to the Dharma, money in the bank, good health, all the right, perfect conditions to carry on practicing your spiritual path. That's what you want. And what we want, the karmic seed of non-killing to be triggered at that point to produce that. So if the person's freaking out and panic-stricken or angry or upset, there's noise everywhere, that'll freak their mind out completely. And that can trigger a negative seed. You don't want that. This is the crucial point. This point is so specific. Are we communicating? Then the next 2 days, 3 days, you leave the body. That's the ideal. And you'd have only silence. It will be like a shrine room. And even the Buddhists, they do 24 hours a day doing prayers and practices, you know. Like when Lama Lundab died, when Lama Zopa, Lama Zopa, yeah, he was different. But for ordinary people, you'd have complete silence. You'd have people coming and giving prayers, doing prayers and practices the whole 3 days, because their mind can still be in the body and they can be hugely benefited from that, you know. And then when the mind leaves, so in the book, there's, you know, the same practices. When you've got masses, 2/3 of the book is the practices. So you can choose, you know. I mean, he likes all these practices. You have to do them all. You can choose. You can just do one. Medicine Buddha. Can't do better. But, you know, you choose which ones you want, and you can have them done. You can do these prayers or blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, that 3 days, what's I about to say? Yeah, you've got to not be disturbing. Because if the mind is still in the body, it can still be disturbed, you know. And because the mind is so sensitive, even, you see, even if, you know, like a person in a coma, or we know this, or a person in a dream, you can have very vivid experiences of knowing what's going on around you. I had that one time in a retreat. I was fast asleep. We have lunch in India in the rainy season. I go to sleep in the afternoon. But I had these vivid, crystal clear dreams and vivid experience of knowing exactly what everybody was saying. I heard all the noise in the kitchen, but I was fast asleep. Do you understand? That's just subtle content. And many people can have that when they're dying or in a coma and be aware of what's going on. That's why it's so important to have it totally peaceful and only prayers, you know. I mean, I told the story of my friend Judy in the hospital in Sydney, totally unconscious in the ER, totally unconscious. And I just said words into her ear. Judy, Tongsa Khense Rinpoche is praying for you. Judy, His Holiness Sakya Trinzit is praying for you. And I'd say mantras. And she came out of her coma weeks later, and that was the only thing she remembered. She had no idea it was me. Nobody, I didn't tell anybody. That she heard it, you know. That's powerful. And that's why animals can be helped as well, because the mind is so sensitive. When you're in a coma, that's your mental consciousness, same as in a dream. You can be very affected. So to keep it conducive and peaceful and calming with prayers day and night, quietly, mantras, is the most precious gift you could give, you know. And keep it peaceful. Totally peaceful. Then, so, okay, in the book, we've got these different scenarios, the same practices, but a chapter on what if your loved one dies at home? What if your loved one dies in a hospital? What if your loved one dies suddenly? What if your loved one ends up giving their organs? What if your loved one is a meditator? There's different scenarios, but they're all the same practice, but you do what you can in each scenario, you know? And one of giving organs, I think I mentioned this last time, I'm sure I did, didn't I? I mentioned last time, that organs, yeah. That's a really interesting to think about. You've got to think about that one. That can be extremely disturbing. If, like that story I said in this book that I read while I was doing it, this woman on the operating table, dead, but her mind was still there because they're keeping her breathing, means your mind is still there. And the heartbeat, the nurse monitoring the heartbeat, said as soon as he saw the circular saw coming to cut her open, the heart went from 100 to 200 beats a minute. And he also said something like he joked about what has a dead person got to worry about, you know. That indicates to me that she was having one of those out-of-body experiences that people have on the operation table, but she was dead technically, but she was still, her mental consciousness was still there. And she was seeing what's happening, and she's freaking out because she knows she's still this person. They don't know I'm dead yet. She's having a panic attack, and that can disturb her mind and change the karma, and a negative karma can be triggered, get a suffering rebirth. So that's the danger. That's the one danger. It mightn't happen to everybody, but that's the simple danger why you need to think about whether you give your organs or not. You know, do you understand? So then finally it goes through those 4 stages more. There's more subtle things happen, you know, and the mind's getting more subtle, more subtle, more subtle, and then finally the clear light consciousness or extremely subtle consciousness. And when the time is right, that there's a little tiny thing at the heart chakra that you get from your mother and father at the time of conception. They call it this indestructible drop, the tiny, subtler aspect of the egg and the sperm, the subtler aspect of the egg and the sperm. At the time of conception, your consciousness joins that, and you begin right here at the time of the beginning of the fetus. You begin right at the heart chakra, this little subtle drop. At the time of death, everything absorbs into there. And then when it opens up, it's a little like a red and white. And when it opens up, that's when your consciousness leaves. And that second is when you're dead. The second is when you're gone. And now you become an intermediate state person, and you revert. It's like now having a dream. You wake up into a dream state. That's the intermediate state, but you've left the body. And they say there's no longer any attachment to this person. All the karma's over. You can even see your body, but you're not caring anymore. It's all finished. And then you sit in this intermediate state, like a subtle dream state, sort of like waiting for your new mum and dad to hop into bed, you know, basically. And it depends on your rebirth. You might get a rebirth immediately. You might have to wait a few weeks, up to 7 weeks, they say. That's it. Yes. Huh? Go. Say. Yeah, go.
It's from Victoria Davis.
Yes, Victoria, darling, talk to me.
She can't because it's about how she can't talk to you because it's about how to deal with someone who isn't prepared to talk about death, about her death or his parents' death. How do you approach them? And he's in the other room. So she would just like
I see.
me to ask the question.
Okay, so say Victoria's question, read it out.
Sure. My partner isn't able to discuss. My partner isn't able to discuss or consider the concept of me dying eventually or ever. How do I approach support it?
Well, I suppose, Victoria, that's one of the first things. I mean, on the practical worldly level, what's happened? My throat's going. Hang on. The practical level, I mean, you know, most people like to do wills and everything, so surely he wants to do that. That's at least confronting the reality you're going to die at some point. And then I suppose, depending on their personality, you know, if a person lives in total denial, that's not uncommon. You've got to accept it and just love them for who they are. There's nothing much you can do. There's nothing much you can do. And on the other hand, and you haven't mentioned it, but I mean, on the other hand, if you want certain things to happen, you've got to write what they call a living will. You've got to do that in spite of him. You've got to get everybody else know what you want, whether he likes it or not. You've got to be super clear what you want to happen when you die, if it's before him. And you can't muck around with that. You might like it. I'm sorry to be rude, but I don't care. You've got to make that happen. And it's like part of your will, you know, it's part of making your will. And you've just got to say it without fear, that you need to do that. So I think it's really important. That's the main one for me. Let him deal with what he wants. He can live in denial if he likes. That's his problem. Be kind, but you've got to be super clear exactly what your wishes are, and everybody, whatever you need to make sure that he knows it, whether he likes it or not, and everybody else knows it. You need to be clear about that. That's my main piece of advice. And accept that he's not going to like it, but you can't help it. That's the main piece as far as I'm concerned.
There's another question.
From Victoria.
You were talking about organ donation.
From Victoria.
Yes, I'm sorry, from Victoria. You were talking about organ donation.
Mm-hmm.
How do you prepare for the shock? If you're an organ donor, is there anything? Okay, if you're an organ donor,
is she an organ donor?
If you want to be an organ donor, how could you prepare for the shock of that happening?
Don't be an organ donor is the answer. If that's the case, I mean, that's the point, not to be rude, because being an organ donor is incredible. And Lama Zopa totally praises it. Anybody who wants to give their organs, he says it's a bodhisattva action. It's amazing. But when you consider this possibility that you might be one of the people whose mind is aware of what's going on the operating table, and unless you're the highest yogi and yogini with realizations of emptiness, you're not going to be ready for it. It's as simple as that. So so that's the one reason to think about whether or not you should do your organs or not. My feeling is, I mean, you know, this man who wrote this book I read called The Undead, this American medical journalist, Nick Teresi. It was all about the obstacles and problems and contradictions and confusions of the American medical profession around death, based on this business of giving organs. And he was quite cynical about the business, with respect. He said all the elitist doctors, very arrogant, pushing people to give their organs, really kind of he was very critical. So my feeling is, it's an amazing thing to do, but if you have the view of reincarnation, there's so many other ways to help people. I mean, of course, because he was really very cynical about their marketing and everything. I think in Europe now, they've made it the law that if you die, your organs will be taken. You have to make a point to say you don't want your organs taken, not the other way around, because they're so manipulative. You know, I'm not being rude. It's an amazing thing, but he's a medical journalist. I'm quoting him, you know. So my feeling is there's many ways to help people. Giving organs is incredible. Of course it is. But if this is a danger, then I want to play safe, thank you. I don't want to have the risk of my mind freaking out and going to the lower realms. Thank you very much. So you got to think about it, Victoria. There's so many ways to help besides giving your organs. It's an amazing thing to do. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, go. Yes, oh, sweetheart, I'll go that one. But the other thing also is interesting. I asked Lama Zopa, and it's in the book, you know, even if your loved one's organs are cut out, it still doesn't mean their mind has left. So it's still good to get their body afterwards and still do prayers and practices. And maybe their mind hasn't left. Maybe it wasn't a very intuitive kind of procedure. You understand? Their mind still could be there. So you still treat the body with real respect and do prayers and practices until you're sure the mind has gone. And there are various signs of when the mind has gone. You understand? That's a really good point. You're going, sweetheart.
Thank you for your teaching, Venerable. The fear that I have is the one that you just described about the link of becoming. And at that point,
So I beg your pardon, what?
during the death process,
Yeah, right.
when the link of becoming,
Well, I'm talking about before that one. I'm talking about the craving and grasping.
okay.
They're before becoming. So what's the question?
The question is, at that point, nothing is in my control. So the
Even
environment.
the first one's not beyond your control, right? Because you're not a yogini. So go on, the question though.
So the question is, I mean, it should be peaceful, it should be quiet, there should be no chaos. I have no control over that. So I guess my question is my karma going to determine
Well, I mean,
whether
of course-
that happens or
Well,
not?
of course, I mean, okay, if you have confidence in the law of cause and effect, it means that everything you do and say and think produces your future. So if you want to have a peaceful death, first on the external level, you'd like I was talking to Victoria, do everything you can to make sure people know and that doctors know and nurses know and your husband knows, whoever else, so that you can be okay. But then really your practice is what will make it good. Your practice, if you don't have problems in your life, it's because you practice. It's not accidental. So you don't have problems at your death, it's also because you practice. So you create the causes mentally, emotionally, by practicing virtue every day, living your vows, making prayers to the gurus, having the Buddhas there, you will have a peaceful death. You create it. Of course, yes.
So even if I'm in an environment where you said,
And the answer is yes.
okay,
But
Good,
the environment
good.
is going to conduct, but that's also the fruit of virtue. If it's a good environment. So you create virtue. Karma ripens in 4 ways. 1, and in life, it's your mind. 2, it's your experiences of how you're seen and treated and the environment. And by practicing virtue, living in vows, you purify those. It's not mystical. You see,
I do.
you create the causes to have a peaceful death, which means you create the causes to die well, with the right people to help you, with not much suffering, quiet, all that. You can create the causes for it by living in vows and being virtuous. They are the causes for exactly all those. Do the very best you can.
Thank
You
you.
understand?
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Hi, I have a question.
Oh, hello, Carol. Hello, sweetheart.
Hello. Hello, Venerable Robina. Good
Hello,
to see
darling.
you.
Yes.
So earlier that you were mentioning that with the Lama Tsongkhapa, with the YouTube, that you listen to the verses, the
You need to
recitation.
speak a bit clearer, Carol. I can't quite understand you, sweetheart.
Yeah. So I was saying like earlier. Can you hear me?
That's better. Go closer. Yeah, go closer
Yeah.
to the mic.
Okay.
Go on.
So I wanted to see if you could send us the Lama Tsongkhapa YouTube verses that you listen to about the Amitabha Pure Land.
Oh, okay. No, okay. What that is my, okay. Thank you. I'm going to send, I promised all the time, and I will do it. We will put on the, I know. Okay. Have you coming? Okay. I keep meaning to put into the chat box some course notes with prayers and things in it. And I will do that. So you're coming again to another class?
Yes.
Okay, so you can go into the chat box and you can get this PDF, and I'll have the prayer in there, and I'll have all these other practices and from Lama Zopa's book. But if you want but what I did was I recited this prayer myself and put it on my phone. So I can send you the audio file of me saying the prayer if you want that, or if you can have the prayer yourself, which I'll have in this PDF, you can read it yourself and record it and play it yourself. Do you understand me?
Oh yes. Since I have your email, would it be easier for you if I just send you an
Yes. Why
email?
don't you email me, Carol, and I can send it to you, sweetheart.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, no. Okay. No, I keep meaning to do these notes and I haven't done it. So I'll put the prayer in as well. It's in the book. I mean, this book, the book is being reprinted, but they haven't done it yet. Wisdom, but the digital version is still available. So I really encourage you all to get the book. The digital version. It's called How to Face Death Without Fear, published by Wisdom. Okay. And the prayers in there. I'll send it to Carol, who really wants it. I'll do it. Okay. And the notes I'll send, the PDF, have a few of these things I've talked about will be in those notes. Okay. Excerpts from the book. So the thing is, of course, your question, Barbara, because we're not clairvoyant, we can't see exactly, But it's sort of like if you've got confidence in botany, you know that anything still can happen. Storms can come and ruin all your plans. Do you understand? But if you just, all you can do is have confidence in the practice and do everything as well as possible. It's all you can do. And if you live a happy life and a good life and you're confident and haven't got too much fear, then you'll be more stable then, even if it is a difficult time. Understand? You've got to have confidence. Otherwise, we're just going to be in the panic stations, panic attack the whole time. Got no choice. Understand? Time to go home. Got better than Yeah, let's do that. We can certainly do that. And anybody else? So Lou, her father, I think his name is Lou, isn't it? So anybody else we know who's right now dying or has died, and including for ourselves, we visualize the medicine Buddha in the sky, looking just like the regular Buddha, but he's blue. And you visualize he's got this begging bowl with all the nectar in it, which is medicine. Think like this. And then we say the mantra, and we visualize from medicine Buddha, as we say the mantra, sending light, pouring blissful blessings to Lu, purifying his mind, praying that he gets a really good human rebirth. Anybody else we know who's died, and all the suffering people on the planet, strongly wanting that for everyone, including ourselves. Taya taum bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze ranza samungate swaha. Taya taum bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze ranza samungate swaha. Taya taum bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze ranza samungate swaha. Taya taum bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze ranza samungate swaha. Taya taum bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze ranza samungate swaha. Taya taum bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze ranza samungate swaha. Taya taum bekanze bekanze ranza bekanze bekanze ranza samungate swaha. Taya taum bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze ranza samungate swaha. So now imagine billions of emanations of medicine would have come out from him and absorbing into every one of us, purifying Lu and every single sentient being, blessing us and purifying our minds. And that's it. We did whatever any of this makes sense to you. Maybe you're not a Buddhist, maybe it's a bit weird, maybe you'd like to try some ideas, but it's just this is the Buddhist view. This is the Buddhist view. So we do what we can with it. We try to practice, try and have confidence in these practices. And the main one, I think, for karma is to have some feeling of we're not some victim of somebody else's conspiracy theory. We feel. I have no idea what's going on, who's running the show. We all think that someone is running the show. That's the complete farce. There's nobody running the show. Each of us is running the show, and that's the tragedy because we don't realize it. So try to get that and feel this sense of confidence. If I want a garden, if I want to go to Boston, it's up to me to cause it. I need to know the causes and then just do it with confidence. So to conclude, the method to get a good death and a good human rebirth and good conditions so you can carry on practicing is create those causes right now. Keep practicing, keep living in vows, and keep purifying. They are the causes, okay? That's it. So keep going, everybody, and be ready for death. It could be today. The thing is, it's like a joke, really, it's not a joke, but the day you die will only ever be called today. Think about that. It can't be called tomorrow. You don't die tomorrow, you die today. So today is the name of the day. So why not get used to it? And it's a really practical point. And I really mean it. Not to be fearful, but to think, I could die today. And I really try, but even as I'm saying it to myself on my pillow, I still don't believe it. What you want to do is try, Don't understand, I know I'm going to wake up in the morning. I just know it. Understand? It's really hilarious, actually. You don't believe it, can't. Come on, Robina. Of course I'm not going to die. I don't feel like a dying person. We think that way. It's very fascinating. This nice Jewish couple who got murdered in, where was it? New York or somewhere. Shot to death, you know. They were not expecting, they were looking forward to a blissful life. They were not getting ready for death. And it happens. You know, we know it all the time. My sister fell down the stairs and her head exploded. She died. She was not planning to die. You understand? So we have to remember that as well. But we pray for her, we get notice, get sick and old, get some warning, you know. That's the best. Okay, people. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, Carol. Thank you, Victoria, everybody. Thank you so much. All both. So I'll see you all again some other day for another topic we're going to talk about. Thank you, people. Much love. Thank you. See you, sweethearts.
Thank you,
Okay.
Venerable.